The Hornets' 3-game winning streak, it came to an end. It basically came to an end in the first half of last night's game against the Grizzlies. They get destroyed, but Mark Williams goes for 38 points. How much does it matter? We talk about all of it today on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. Doug Branson is here. You can find him on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Listen to him on Locked On NBA as well with Matt Moore and Hayes. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. And I want to tell you this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time?
Game Time.
Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Plus, I do want to tell you about a newsletter we have introducing we decided it is still new, the new Locked On Hornets daily newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up for free right now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. Start your day with the all-new free Locked On Hornets newsletter. The Hornets, they do not continue their winning streak in an emphatic way. In fact, they give up almost 80 points in the first half to the Memphis Grizzlies, 78 to be exact.
Is that bad?
It's not good. And, offensively, maybe the Hornets, were better offensively. Let's see, first half. They didn't get to 50, which isn't the worst in the world, but it's also not very good. So we know the first half performance, it was quite bad. Second half, they gave us one of those fake comebacks, which I can take some solace in, not just rolling over, laying down all the euphemisms to say that they gave up. They didn't do any of that, but also it's a fake comeback for a reason. Memphis wasn't in ever really real danger of giving this game up. So Grizzlies, they win 132-120 over the Hornets last night. We have a lot of Mark Williams things to discuss. He goes for 38 points, a career high for sure. He also had 9 rebounds. He was 10 of 13 from the free throw line. He was 14 of 18 from the field. It's after what's just a monster productive in terms of the box score second half for Mark Williams. You see him go for 14 points in the third quarter, 15 points in just like 9 minutes worth of time in the fourth quarter. So he was scoring a lot of buckets in the second half, but I think we saved that. Do you want to lead off with it, or did you want to talk more about the defense against LaMelo? That was real physical. That was lots of no calls here, like from the rip. Jaylen Wells was just all over LaMelo, and the refs were letting him get in his shirt and not doing anything about it. What do you think is the bigger deal in terms of how the game played out?
Well, I think the bigger deal is going to be Mark Williams setting a career high in points. And what was funny is after the game, someone asked him, hey, you set a career high, 36 points. How do you feel about that? And Mark goes, 38? 38, right? 38? And then someone confirms, 38. And he goes, I'm sorry, what was the question?
Don't shy away.
And then
dude, give my man his almost 40 burger. He was a bite away from a 40
don't cheat
burger.
me my 2 points on my career high night. Anyway, what was the question? I've never felt more aligned with Mark Williams than in that moment. Not really paying attention to the question, just concerned about exactly how many points he had. Look, man, I knew coming into this episode that I'm fighting a losing battle here because I was on the everyhornetsboxscore.com chat last night. We do a chat for every game, by the way, if you haven't signed up. It's a cool little micro community of hardcore Hornets fans. And in the chat, everybody was pumped about the 38 points because the hope is the sickness, and there's hope that Mark Williams can be a transformative center for a franchise that has not had one since Al Jefferson was third team All-NBA. So you want to believe that the 38 points means something. The problem is that so much of that came in a second half in which they weren't playing Zach Edey and Jaren Jackson Jr. together in the second half. They had taken their foot off the gas. And, look, credit to Mark for running the floor better in the second half. Credit to Nick Smith Jr. for penetrating, putting the passes on target. Credit to LaMelo Ball for just standing in the corner because Jaylen Wells was face guarding him, so it just opens up more space in the paint at that point. But the first half, Mark was a non-factor. He was getting pushed outside of the paint. Also, credit to Zach Edey, by the way, who in the first half looked like a monster and in the second half turned into a block of wood. I mean, that's got to be a problem for them going forward. Is that if you play Zach Edey normal minutes in the first half, he just seizes up and turns into one of those statues on Easter Island in the second half. And so Mark was able to take advantage of that. But in the first half, they were physical with Mark. And it wasn't just the two centers that they play, which Jaren Jackson Jr. is not a power forward. I'm sorry, he's a center. They play two centers. And It was Brandon Clark, it was Santi Aldama pushing Mark outside of the paint, outside of his comfort zone, and he was missing shots. He wasn't hitting guys. He wasn't running the floor. And I just want him to set a tone. Like, set a tone. This happened in the Utah game, too, by the way. He racked up most of his points in that Utah 30-point game in the second half, and it was needed then because the game was close. But at the same time, it's like you need your center to set a physical tone, and he's not doing it, and that's frustrating to me.
Yeah, look, so I hear you on some of this stuff. There's still a long way to go in terms of impacting the game. And look, here we are joking now, right? You went from wanting somebody to do it in the box score. Now Mark is doing it in the box score. Now you're hoping he's more like Cody Zeller and doing a bunch of things that help you out of the box score. Now you are flipping. You have come full circle on this.
Wrong. I want him to do it in the box score in the first half. That's what I'm asking. You've got to set a tone. We've been talking for the past couple of days about how to watch these games. And I've said, you got to watch how the starters play together. And I would add something to that, particularly to start games. They've got to set tones. They've got to form an identity. You don't form an identity after going down 25, 30 points in the first half and then coming back. That's not an identity. An identity is we bring that from the tip, from jump ball. And that's not what they're doing right now. And I know it's frustrating Lee, too, because after the game when he was asked about, Shannon Spake said, how do you deal with this when you've got a player who sets a career high, but it obviously comes in what was ultimately a blowout loss, even though the score was closer at the end? And Lee said, quote, how he played in the second half is really what we needed in the first half. The force he played with and his ability to finish in the paint, unquote. I mean, that's it right there. If you think I'm a Mark Williams hater and you don't want to take this from me after a night where he scores 38, that's fair. That's fine. But that's Charles Lee right there telling you, hey, need second half Mark Williams in the first half.
Yeah, and that's all true. I guess the difference comes in how do you view him as a player going forward? Because it's what do you want to pay attention to? What do you think is here to stay? And you're saying it's the hope that kills you. Well, we are still talking about a player that hasn't played more than 25 games for a stretch because of injury history. Now, if you want to point to the injury history for Mark Williams being too injury prone and they can move off of him and it wouldn't be a big deal, then I can understand that. But what I see in Mark Williams, the hope, I'll die from the hope. That's fine. Like if I die with the hope, I will absolutely say R.I.P. Walker Mail. I died believing in Mark Williams because I do.
I'm trying to throw you life rafts, and I can just see your hands slowly sinking in the water.
Not because I wonder if I find land and then I throw you life rafts and then you're just on a life raft by yourself in the water. Well, because it seems when you talk about Mark, it feels like you don't think he'll ever become that. And this is my question to that is why so early to discuss this way when there has clearly been a lack of games for Mark, and he does show us what he can do in halves or whole games. Like you look at the numbers for Mark, right? There are halves where he has disappeared or gotten taken advantage of. There is Daniel Gafford where he looked like a rag doll. There is Vucevic where once he got the tech, Vuce went to work offensively. But there are games in which also Mark has shown up. So this is my question. When, okay, we know that a 23-year-old that hasn't played more than 25 games at a time at a position that this team has desperately needed for so long, and now he's showing you, oh, okay, when he does put it all together, this guy looks awesome. I think for me, it's what do you choose to focus on? Because for me, I'm choosing to focus on, hey, there's still a lot of work to be done with Mark. There's still a lot of stuff that he could do on a play-to-play basis, on a half-to-half basis. But look at what happens when it does come together on these short stretches. Once we get longer stretches from this really talented player that also has a body that you can't teach. Oh my God, like in a couple years worth of time, the culmination of what Mark is supposed to be, that is what I choose to look at. I wonder why you don't look at it that way.
I'm not giving up on Mark Williams. What I'm asking Mark Williams to do is set a tone physically in the first half or develop a jump shot. I'll give you the perfect sequence that sums up my
or just
frustrations
attempt
with
more.
Mark.
Or I would love the offense to just like attempt more, because the 11 footers too, like just even mid-range jump shots would be great.
So there was a sequence in the third quarter about 7 minutes ago. Josh Green steals it. Mark runs the floor, flushes the oop. It was awesome. It was him using the skill set, the long wingspan to catch the oop, the running down the floor to beat Zach Edey, again turned into a block of wood. That was great. And great use of his current skill set. Problem is, Grizzlies immediately push it off the make, and Mark's man, Jay Huff, open for three, bang. In that moment, Mark's dunk and all of the skill set that we just talked about, it was erased and won. And so my thing with Mark is, like, if you can't set a tone physically in the first half, then you better be able to shoot. And if you can't shoot, you better be able to set a tone physically in the first half. I'm not giving up on Mark. I'm just asking, hey, in the offseason, and maybe this is a part of that development, is like you got to pick one of those things, and preferably both. Because if you're both, then you can be an impact player in the postseason. That's what it's not about scoring 38 points and a bunch in the second half against a Memphis team that had taken their foot off the gas. Right. I'm looking at Mark like, what can he be in a 7-game playoff series potentially? And I'm just not seeing a player that is going to make a significant impact in that situation. Not yet. I mean, I still have a little bit of hope, but yeah, I'm not seeing a ton of evidence of that happening.
Well, right, like, This is where I think I don't know what to make of what you're saying. You know, like it's like I got a little bit of hope, but it's also Mark having not played very many games. He played 19 last year. He played 18 this year. It's like I got a little bit of hope, but after 37.
Man, look, I don't know that. So I think there's some technique stuff and, footwork and different things and body positioning and things where you can go, well, not enough games played. Man, if you don't want to go out there and like hit Zach Edey or hit Jaren Jackson Jr., I don't know how many games are going to like bring that out in a guy. I'm just not sure.
So here's my defense too in the first half. When Mark Williams went out in the first half, like clearly Mark was not all that impactful until he went out, and then I saw what they looked like without Mark, and Zach Edey's life was so much easier. When Mark went out for that stretch in the first half, Zach just was doing whatever he wanted down low, got to the foul line, hit a couple free throws. Mark's presence going out there on the court, it matters. Like and I'm with you. I think he does get pushed around. I think people get under his hip and they can move him. I think when you have a player like Zach Edey, who is 7'4" and a monster, I think clearly you need to come in and bring the intensity. But also, when Mark was off of the floor, this was a Grizzlies team that was like, oh, okay, now everything is much easier in the paint. You could see it. So with his presence being out there too, and Zach Edey being a force in the first half, he had 7 points. He had a couple rebounds. Like I thought he was good, but a force was a little too strong in my opinion. And also, like, look, man, I get it with Mark not hitting the shots, but the hook shot for Zach Edey at 7'4" from the short corner, who else is supposed to stop that? Like that's the allure of drafting Zach Edey at number 9. Nobody else. Joel Embiid isn't blocking that shot. He's not tall enough. He doesn't have the standing reach. Zach Edey, it's just on some of those things, I don't know what Mark is supposed to do. You done with it?
Well, I mean, your point is well taken on his impact on versus off, but all I would say to that is, because Moussa Diabate, who is a power forward, is coming onto the floor and playing center for you. See, so that's the difference when I look at it. I'm not looking at it from the perspective of what's he on versus off, because this isn't a real basketball team right now. It's not filled with real depth where you can make those kind of evaluations. I'm looking at it just based on like imagining Mark Williams in a playoff series on a team with actual NBA depth. What would that look like? And I see problems when he comes to the first half like he came to that game.
Did you just okay me? Were you done with it? You got frustrated and okayed me?
Well, because I know, but it's not you. I just know. I'm just anticipating the comments right now being like, Doug, he scored 38, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. I mean, what more do you want the guy to do on 77.8% shooting? And I say, hit somebody in the first half. That's what I would like you to do.
All right, let's move on. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
He's everywhere!
You smiled. It seemed like you had something to say, and then you said, okay. Thank you. Over the net. It's Walker Bale, Doug Branson here, Locked On Hornets. We're done with Mark. We'll move on. Some other things to notice, though, in this game. Defensively, LaMelo, they were just letting anybody foul him, and they weren't giving him any calls. This was one of the, hey, can we officiate LaMelo like a star game? This was one of those types of games. We'll get to that coming up next. LOH. This episode is brought to you by Talkspace. Therapy is a game changer. It can help manage stress, improve sleep, and communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be a challenge. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With Talkspace, signing up is simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within 48 hours. And it's convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your own home and even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans, and for more insured members, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize mental health. As a listener of this podcast, you'll get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNBA and enter promo code SPACE80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNBA and enter promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and show your support for the show. That's Talkspace.com/LockedOnNBA, promo code SPACE80. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Other observations from this game. You said the defense played against LaMelo before we hopped on the mic. You thought that was a big deal. I totally agree with that. I think Jaylen Wells, who was defending LaMelo quite a bit, was extremely physical. You wanted a tone setter. Jaylen Wells was trying to set the tone with the physicality that he played. No calls for LaMelo. It just felt like there were a couple of questionable ones in the first half. There's the one where there's even a foul call against Josh Green when he's just trying to free LaMelo up on a screen. And Green, Charles Lee was beside himself in that moment too, just because it felt, okay, if you're going to call a foul, then I'm not sure Green is the guy to call it against. But really, I think the play is to just not call one, right? Like just not call one if Wells is going to play like that, and then Green is going to have to set a hard screen. Either way, what'd you think about the defense played against Melo?
Yeah, I mean, shouts to Jaylen Wells, man. He came out there, and that's what a good team should do against a bad team is like, look, we're going to go out and force the referees to call a foul. This is what Oklahoma City does. This is how they terrorize people because they're like, you can't call every single foul. So all five of our guys are just going to go out there and be physical with you and force the referees to do something. And somebody's going to eat 2 or 3 early fouls. That's okay because we can back it down. But at that point, we're already in your head. We've already got you second guessing. And that's what happened not only to LaMelo, but the whole Hornets team. It's like, Walker, have you ever been punched in the face?
I actually haven't. No, never been punched in the face. Not bare fist, anything like that. Messing around maybe, but no, not really. Well,
you're lucky. I've taken a hit to the face before, and when it happens,
there's Were you arguing about Mark Williams? Is that what it was? Was it? I'm not surprised.
It had nothing to do with the Hornets. This was long time ago, grade school days. And when you get hit in the face, though, there's this moment where you're like, wait, what just happened? Did I just get hit in the face? I've never been hit in the face. Well, that's crazy. And when it happened, that moment of you being sort of woozy and not understanding what happened, that's what the Hornets look like. That's what the offense looked like. They were not prepared for the level of physicality that they were throwing down. So this was a good experience for LaMelo. Without Brandon Miller, there's no one to really take that heat. No one's going to double Miles. No one's going to really do anything about Mark Williams either. In fact, Mark Williams is going to get open a lot because of the attention that they were paying to LaMelo Ball and to Nick Smith Jr. pulling that defense away. And so if you're LaMelo, you've got to find ways to shake it off and not maybe work the refs a little bit, but you got to get back on defense and then really find ways to get other people involved to take some of that pressure off, to force the Grizzlies to back off of you a little bit. I don't think he did a terrible job. Like, I don't think he was forcing things in a lot of these possessions. But I also think, like, if I'm being honest, I think LaMelo Ball reminds me a lot of what I've seen from Donovan Mitchell, who he's right now sharing the fan vote with in the All-Star East guard vote. He reminds me a lot of what I've seen from Donovan Mitchell over the past couple of years, which is that even with putting talent around Donovan Mitchell, you've seen teams this season like Oklahoma City Thunder put Lou Dort on him and shut him down. Guys are going to be specially trained to take out guys like LaMelo and Donovan Mitchell, and they will be successful on most nights. And it's really, I think, that final thing that separates a star from a superstar. Like, no one can clamp Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. No one can clamp Jokic, prime LeBron, Luka. There's just that echelon. And that's not a slight to LaMelo. It's just like very few guys reach that point. And I just think and we'll see this more clearly if the Hornets put more talent around him like they've done with Donovan. But like, that's just kind of my thought on it.
No, and I get it. I think the other players you mentioned too, they are getting the star calls. They are getting help from the officials. If Jaylen Wells is, or whatever the defender is, let's just say Josh Green is that, and he comes in and he's real physical with these stars, and they start getting the ears of the ref, and they start telling you, hey, give me a little space to operate, or I'm going to have to chicken wing somebody. And then, okay, maybe LaMelo could get some of the benefit of the doubt on that too, and it didn't seem like he was getting that in the first half.
Well, he drew 11
whatsoever.
fouls according to pivotfade.com. He drew 11 fouls, so he wasn't doing a terrible job. How many times did he go to the line? So
how much of it was
from the line?
How much of it was in the second half? That's right, my question. So yeah, it looked like he was free throw wise.
So four in the second half, fouls drawn, and then 4
free throws in the third. Yeah,
7 fouls drawn in the first half.
Okay, well, that's not bad. It just felt like there could have been more. I'll say that. It felt like there could have been more.
So that's what I'm saying. That's exactly to my point, which is like Jaylen Wells went out there with the attitude of they're not going to they're not going to give me 6 fouls in the first quarter. So I'm just going to work this dude. And you could see it was frustrating LaMelo Ball. He was every play. He was like, hey, this dude's got his hands all over me. And that's fair. Like, I think it would frustrate anyone. And the question is, and the question that has been asked by so many good offensive players is like, how do you deal with that situation? How do you work yourself out of that situation? And, I thought he did a good job of continuing to get to the paint, continuing to drive. And eventually the whistle did catch up. But by that point, of course, Memphis had already come out and gotten a 20-point lead.
Just nobody stepped up and shot real well from the field when it mattered. Miles was 5 of 14. We've already gone through Mark, where all that was in the second half, but game was already decided. LaMelo 7 of 20. Josh Green, not enough shots, 3 of 5. Nick Smith Jr., same thing. Didn't get any help off of your bench. Like, nobody stepped up and gave you any kind of efficient scoring in this one. I do think you're right. Just touching on the Mark subject again, when Mark comes out in the first half and then you're bringing in Musa, like, you are talking about a lack of Nick Richards and just size there. You're not wrong. Like, I think with just having somebody that's Musa's height, where you're 6'7", 6'8", you're smiling here. Just say it. Just what do you want to say? Or is this like some kind of like,
okay.
I told you? Is that what I'm trying to have a conversation? Well, no, I do think that the size, I'm trying to throw you a bone. I guess it seems like you are very, hungrily taking it. I was just saying Musa coming out here doesn't really help.
And
like,
I love Musa, that's not Musa's fault. That's not me hating on Musa. Yeah. I think Musa's a really good player who also needs to learn how to shoot this offseason. Would be great. It would be great. And this is what we need to talk about in the final segment, is these kinds of games, I think, really highlight where the Charlotte Hornets are as a franchise, where Memphis, a legitimate playoff contender, top 3, I think, still in the Western Conference, but they're going to be a force in the playoffs, how far that gap is right now. And that to me, what you're talking about there, Musa coming onto the floor to play center against, and it's something unique that Memphis offers, like having Edey and Jaren Jackson Jr., but at the same time, like, the Hornets don't have legitimate NBA size.
Well, I will say, yeah, like this is why you got punched in the face, Doug, because when I was trying to lend something here of a Musa conversation, you had this smug, I got him. You had that little smile with your previous reference to Musa. You're right. Also, I'll feed that. You're right also in this is unique. Like, Zach Edey is a unique player in Memphis. There's not anybody else like him. So Musa, while also being shorter, there's not that big of a gap between average front court size, even contending front court size, playoff front court size and what Musa comes in and does. Now, he's still shorter. He's still going to get hurt in that regard. But when you're talking about Defensive Player of the Year, Jaren Jackson playing the 4 to Zach Edey's 7-4-5, like that's going to be really hard for Diabate to rise above and be an impact player. As much as I love him defensively, getting under the hip of these guys and moving them out and athleticism, I think he is an NBA player. You're right. Like that was something that hurt this team. And nobody stepped up offensively. It was really tough for them to score. So this was the task at hand. All right, one more segment to go. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
One more segment to go. We'll give you the rapid fire observations. Look ahead at the next couple games on the Hornets schedule. I believe the homestand. It starts, and it's a long one. We'll get to all of that coming up next. LOH. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time?
Game time.
I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, comedy. I keep telling you, I'm going to a Kendrick Lamar concert. I can't wait for that here in Charlotte. There are plenty of concerts here in Charlotte. So if you want to go, Game Time might have something for you. It's made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Game Time Picks. This feature filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I was just looking for tickets to an upcoming game concert using the Game Time app, a couple of different items just to see what Game Time was all about. And with Game Time Picks, you can find amazing deals, and you could even see the view from your seat before buying. That's a big deal. The super deal was particularly impressive, offering great seats at unbeatable prices. Plus, the app's all-in pricing shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. Locked On NBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time? Nah, that's all right. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Rapid fire observations here, Doug. What you got for me?
I'm sorry, I didn't game time you at the second game time because I'm just like watching in disbelief as the Hornets let Luke Kennard get off for 23 points. I'm just watching the clips. A lot of it in transition. Miles Bridges allowed a few of those to happen. I think he was like laser focused on having to deal with being outsized by Jaren Jackson Jr., but just some pretty horrible misses by him in transition against Luke Kennard. And then everybody just kept like flying by Luke Kennard. Like Luke Kennard can't easily relocate on his 3-point shot and knock it down, man. I mean, Kennard has this amazing ability to score 23 points. Couldn't remember a single shot that he made. Like it's it's crazy.
I don't know, man. I certainly did. He was making it rain from three. Like I don't know. There was a couple times where he was wide open. There were a couple of I think there was a three in the second half where you had this fake comeback, and then Luke Kennard would hit a three and then just keep him at arm's length, and it just wasn't going to go down for the Hornets in that regard too. So we talked about the Hornets shooting well coming into this game. We're shooting a lot better. The 3-point percentage, they were 41 of 86. They were 41. I'll say this number again. 86. There's no way that's true, though, right? Like, that's got to be a field goal number, because I'm looking at some of these numbers. They look off on ESPN. There's no way they shot 86. Yeah, I was about to say.
That would be an NBA all-time record. So what are you looking for here? Three-pointers?
Field goals is what it is. It's just the stats have shifted to the right. I was like looking at numbers that were interesting from this one. I saw 86. I was like, wait a minute. Number. It would be very interesting. No, it looks like the 86 number represents the total amount of field goals here. But the shooting, even still, we talked about it, Doug. They just weren't hitting shots. The defense really affected them, but the outside shooting too. Like Miles, 2 of 8, had been hitting some shots from distance a little bit better recently, and it just didn't come for him. LaMelo, 2 of 6 from 3, so the 3-point shot just wasn't there for the Hornets either, from their stars particularly.
Yeah, so 35.5% overall from 3. The 2 of 6 number, the more interesting is the denominator, right? That's the bottom one. The denominator. It's been a while since I've taken a math class.
It is, yes, that is correct.
But it's the 6 attempts, and that's Jaylen Wells, man. He was face guarding him. He was in his shirt. They didn't care about the spacing issues that it would cause,
yeah,
because the Hornets don't have a lot of 3-point shooters. So Before I talk about sort of what this means in the overall grand scheme of where the Hornets are as a franchise, I do want to shout out Josh Okogie for winning a jump ball over Zach Edey. That was great.
That was wild. That was wild.
But I also want to remind Josh Okogie once again, because he did the same thing that he did in his debut, got into transition and shovel passed it backwards to Vasa Micic, who missed a three. He had somebody open, cutting through the lane, could have found them, instead went to the shovel pass. Josh, just once again, you are not shovel passing backwards to Devin Booker. It's not Kevin Durant. It's not even Bradley Beal. That is Vasa Micic. No more shovel passes backwards. It's not in transition. That's not going to work well. Got to get to the rim. The Grizzlies were too strong. They were too big. Much like actual Grizzlies, now that I think about it, they represented what a Grizzly would actually do to a human being. But bottom line is to a Hornet. Well, yeah, if it could catch it. They have no chill. Walker. They have no chill. Jaylen Wells did not have any chill. They didn't care. And it's something that I think the Hornets should aspire to. Like, they've got to eventually get the personnel in that can match that. And look, Jaylen Wells is a rookie. They drafted that guy. I think it was deep first round, early second round.
39th overall pick from what I remember. Yeah.
So early second round. They drafted that guy. This is what Charles Lee and Jeff Peterson have to continue to do, is go out and find Jaylen Wells type of players who have NBA size and have a unique motor. That's what you've got to have.
And that's what they're trying to do. I will say, in terms of Hornets DNA, they are trying to draft that type of player. And then here we are just looking at the schedule to give everybody a quick update. This is where they're going to be at the Spectrum Center for a very long time. In fact, they're going to play a game on Friday against Portland at home. And then they will play 9 home games up until February 7th. That will be their last home game against San Antonio. Then they'll start their long road stretch. But you got a lot of games at home. So this is going to be an interesting stretch here because you have games against Portland. You have a game against New Orleans, who weirdly so, if that's how I can describe it, New Orleans is on a winning streak. It was one of the longer winning streaks. The Hornets had one of the longer ones. The Pelicans are on a 4-game winning streak right now after having a terrible start to their season. So anyways, you have Portland, you have New Orleans, you have the Lakers, you have the Nets, you have the Clippers, Denver, Washington, Milwaukee, San Antonio. Winnable games with how the team is competing right now. Some tough ones for sure in there, but some winnable games also in that stretch with the way that the Hornets are competing outside of this Memphis contest. With this being at home, I'm hoping they can provide some more Dallas Mavericks MLK Day type of environments because Hornets fans, they'll show up if you give them something to cheer for. They gave the Hornets fans something to cheer for on Monday. I'm hoping that we see more of that than the Grizzlies performance because you could really pick up some steam going into a tough part of your schedule and right before All-Star break. So we'll see what they're able to do.
Show up to Spectrum Center. Also note that game against the Lakers will be the first opportunity to watch the Charlotte Hornets on local television, free over the air with your antenna. You can watch them on WSOC, first time since 2007-2008 season that you'll be able to do that. So if you are in the local viewing area, I encourage you to watch it on that program or on that channel. And then again, contact somebody within the organization and say, hey, I loved what you did there. Would love to see more of that because I think that's going to be important for building a sustainable fan base. As they try to build a sustainable team, it would be nice if people can watch that team. So, yeah.
I'm glad you reminded me.
Local channel.
No, I'm glad you reminded me, actually, because I did want to say this, too. The Hornets released a statement yesterday. They put out a PR statement that the Hornets, Gray Media, and Capital Broadcasting, FanDuel Sports Southeast, they're all partnering to simulcast 5 games this season that will be distributed in various markets throughout North Carolina and throughout South Carolina. So they already told you the games that they're going to be broadcasting via the Charlotte area. Now they're going to be broadcasting the games all throughout the Carolinas. Shelly Kyatt Weston telling you that they are committed to growing their fan base. I continue to say I'm just so happy that they're not hustling backwards anymore. This is the way. I think that they continue doing smart things in this regard. Allow us to watch some free basketball, provide more fans from the Carolinas. Thank you very much, Hornets organization. Just don't give us any more games like you gave us against the Grizzlies.
I was laughing because I was laughing at the idea of FanDuel Sports Network partnering with the team to make this simulcast happening. That's like someone twisting your arm backwards and you're partnering to give their money back. But really, it's you have no choice. I mean, they were in bankruptcy. They had to do this, and I hope they continue to partner with FanDuel Sports Network to pull more games next season into a space. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with having it on FanDuel Sports Network. I think that there should be just more opportunities. Maybe it's not all the games, but there should be more opportunities for fans to watch these things locally. It's just going to help the fan base. Also, one more thing on this Grizzlies game. All the bigs can shoot. Zach Edey, 38% from the field this year, only on 1 attempt per game, but he can shoot. Jaren Jackson Jr. can shoot. Jay Huff can shoot. You need bigs that can shoot. 5 out. It's the future of the NBA. Wake up, Hornets. Let's go.
All right, that'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free. We're available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. There's Doug Branson, everyhornetsboxscore.com, Locked On NBA. Also, when you go to his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com, you can find his subtext information there as well. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.